I thought a love potion would make my boss fall for me, but instead I uncovered a secret I never expected. It started as a harmless crush, just a silly little fantasy to make my days brighter, but one decision turned my world upside down. What happened next was something I could have never prepared for. What started as a simple plan turned into the most unexpected twist of my life. Hi, my name is Clara, and I've been hopelessly in love with my boss Mr. for months. Every day I'd find myself watching him from across the office, wondering if he'd ever notice me the way I noticed him. His quiet confidence, the way he spoke talklians with ease, it all made my heart race, but no matter how hard I tried he seemed completely oblivious to me. I couldn't take it anymore. I was tired of just being the invisible girl at work, so I decided to do something drastic, desperate to make him see me. It read something I never thought I'd do: a love potion. I had heard about it from a friend, a little vial of magic that could make anyone fall in love with you. It sounded ridiculous, I know, but in that moment I didn't care. I needed him to notice me, to feel something for me, and I was willing to take any chance. But what I didn't realize was that magic has a way of revealing truths you're not ready for, and this potion, it was about to change everything. For weeks I watched Mr. Dalton trying to figure out the perfect moment to slip the potion into his coffee. I knew his routine by heart. Helicate his coffee strong black and with just a hint of bitterness, no sugar. I made sure to get everything right. I even bought a new dress, something simple but flattering, just in case he noticed me. I handed him the cup. Maybe it hot, if I looked more confident, if I looked like I belonged in his world, he'd finally see me as more than just the efficacy assistant. I spent hours planning every detail. I had the potion hidden in my desk drawer, waiting for the right moment. The plan was simple. I'd offer him coffee, slip the potion in, and then wait for the magic to happen. He'd drink it, and then, well, he'd fall in love with me. Right? It seemed foolproof, but of course nothing ever goes as planned. The day came and I was a nervous wreck. My hands were shaking as I prepared the coffee. I could barely keep my mind focused on the task, my thoughts racing with excitement and fear. I poured the potion into his cup, watching the liquid swirl inside, a faint shimmer in the light. I held my breath, praying it would work. Just as I was about to bring the cup to Mr. Dalton's office, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around to see Ethan, my overly enthusiastic coworker, standing there with his usual grin plastered across his face. Ethan was nice enough, but he never knew when to take a hint. He'd been asking me all week about the report I was working in, and now he had cornered me in the hallway. He was talking a mile a minute, and I couldn't focus on anything but the cup in my hand. Hey, Clara, got a minute? Ethan said, his voice loud and a little too chipper. I just wanted to ask you about. Before I could even respond, he raked out and grabbed the cup from my hand, thinking it was his. My heart dropped into my stomach. Thanks, she said, smiling as he took a long sip, completely oblivious to what was happening. I froze, watching in horror. Ash drank the potion, the one thing I had planned so carefully. My hands trembled, and I could feel my pulse racing. Instead of Mr. Dalton drinking the potion, my coworker Ethan had taken it, and that's when everything started to change. As the minutes passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Ethan was acting strange. At first I thought maybe it was just me, my nerves getting the best of me, but no, something was definitely different. He kept looking at me with this intense, almost admiring gaze. I could feel his eyes on me even when I wasn't looking. At first I thought maybe he was just being his usual awkward self, but it was more than that. He was smiling more, leaning a little too close when he spoke, and there was this softness in his voice that made me uncomfortable. Clara, you look really nice today, he said, his eyes lingering a little too long. I mean, you always look great, but today there's something different about you. I blinked, unsure how to respond. Ethan complimenting me? This wasn't the same guy I'd worked with for months, and then it hit me: the potion he had drunk it, not Mr. Dalton. I wanted to scream. This was not how it was supposed to go. I had planned the perfect evening for my boss, dinner at that little Italian restaurant he liked, followed by a walk in the park, just the two of us, but now it felt like the universe was laughing at me. Ethan, of all people, was the one under the potion's influence, not Mr. Dalton. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that I could still make it work, but when I saw Mr. Dalton across the room, still completely oblivious to my existence, my frustration hit a boiling point. He was talking to one of the clients, laughing and completely ignoring me. I had tried everything to get his attention, but it was like I didn't even exist in his world. The potion wasn't working on him, and I was starting to lose hope. Meanwhile, Ethan was still hovering around me, his newfound attention making me more and more uncomfortable. Hey, Clara, he said, suddenly enthusiastic. I know you've got a big date coming up with Mr. Dalton, right? Maybe I could help you practice, just to make sure you didn't mess it up or anything. I stared at him, my mind racing. Was he serious? Was he actually offering to help me practice for a date with another man? Couldn't believe it. Ethan, the guy who never seemed to notice me before, was now practically offering to be my date coach. The irony was too much. Sure, I said, trying to hide my frustration. When to my surprise, as we practiced, I found myself laughing more than I had in days. Ethan's goofy charm, his awkwardness, his genuine care, it was all so unexpected, and for the first time I realized That maybe I was starting to enjoy this more than I should, but in the back of my mind I knew this wasn't what I had planned. I wasn't supposed to behaving fun with Ethan, I was supposed to with Mr. Dalton, but now the lines were starting to blur as the evening wore on. The practice date with Ethan started to feel different. What was supposed to be a silly rehearsal for a night with Mr. Dalton had turned into something else entirely. Ethan wasn't just helping me practice my lines or pretending to be my date for the night, he was listening to me in a way no one ever had before. We sat at a small table in the break room, the dim lighting casting soft shadows on the walls. Ethan leaned forward, genuinely interested in what he had to say. He asked about my favorite places to visit, my childhood dreams, the things that made me laugh. He wasn't just pretending to care like I'd seen from other people, he actually cared. Clara, you know, he said, his voice soft, almost hesitant, you've always been kind of quiet. I think people don't realize how amazing you are. I was taken aback by his words. For the first time I felt truly seen, and it wasn't by the man I thought I loved. Ethan smiled gently, his eyes holding a sincerity that made my heart race in a way I hadn't expected. I've been in love with you for years, Claire. I've always admired you, even when you didn't notice me. I know it sounds crazy, but I just had to say it. I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you, and I think maybe this is it. My heart skipped a beat. I had always seen Ethan as just the goofy coworker, the guy who always had a joke or a kind word to say, but now hearing him confess his feelings, everything changed. I didn't know what to say. I had been so fixated on Mr. Dalton for so long, imagining a life with him, planning a future that didn't exist, but now Ethan was here telling me he loved me. Same Ethan who had always been there for me, who knew me better than anyone else, but the pull I felt for Mr. Dalton was still there, strong and unyielding. He was the one I thought I was meant to be with, the one I had imagined my life with. How could I possibly feel anything for Ethan when my heart was still tied to someone else? I didn't know what to say. I stammered my emotions and turmoil. I never thought about you that way, Ethan. I've always been so focused on Mr. Dalton. I thought he was Theon. Ethan's expression softened and he reached out, placing a hand gently over mine. I get it, Clara, I do, but I just want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what. You don't have to choose right now, just know that I've always cared about you. For a moment, I just sat there overwhelmed by everything Ethan, the man who had always been by my side, had just beat his heart to me, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still chasing something that wasn't real. As much as I tried to fight it, I knew that things were starting to change, and not just because of the potion. Something inside me was awakening, something I hadn't noticed before. The question was, would I be brave enough to follow it? The next morning I walked into the office, still reeling from the night before. Ethan's confession lingered in my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. As much as I tried to focus on work, my thoughts kept drifting back to Mr. Dalton. I had spent so long trying to make him notice me. It felt like every effort was in vain. Then out of nowhere Mr. Dalton called me to his office. My heart raced as I stepped inside, trying to steady my nerves. This was at the moment I'd been waiting for. He looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable. Clara, he began, his voice formal, I just wanted to acknowledge the report you submitted. It was excellent. Your work has been impressive, and I appreciate your dedication. I smiled, trying to hide the disappointment that crept in. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. I'm just doing my job, Henna did, not even glancing up from his paperwork. Keep it up. You're a valuable member of the team. That was it. No compliment, no recognition beyond the professional. He didn't even look at meth way I had imagined. In that moment, I realized no potion, no plan could make him love meth way I wanted. It was a crushing realization, but it was also freeing. The fantasy I had built up in my mind for months shattered in an instant. Mr. Dalton wasn't the man I had dreamed him to be, was just my boss. As I left his office, my mind was clearer than it had been in days. I thought of Ethan and how he'd been there for me all along, how truly saw me not as an object of desire, but as a person. I had been chasing something that wasn't real, something that had never been meant for me. It was time to stop pretending. I walked back to my desk, my heart heavy but hopeful. I wasn't going to waste any more time on a love that wasn't returned. I was going to focus on what made me truly happy, and for the first time I felt a sense of peace. The potion hadn't worked, but maybe that was a blessing in disguise, because now I knew where my heart truly belonged. Later that day I found myself standing outside the break room, my heart pounding in my chest. I had been avoiding Ethan all morning, unsure of what to say after everything that had happened, but now I knew what I had to do. Took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Ethan was sitting at the table, his usual goofy smile still there, but there was a quiet sadness in his eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Ethan, I said, my voice trembling slightly, I need to talk to you. He looked up, his expression softening. Clara, what's wrong? I walked over to him, my hand shaking as I took a seat. I've been so caught up in this idea of Mr. Dalton and his fantasy I created that I didn't see what was right in front of me. Ethan's eyes widened, but he didn't say anything, just listened as I continued. I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice cracking. I was so busy chasing something that wasn't real that I didn't see the real magic standing right in front of me. Ethan's face softened and he reached out, placing his hand Over mine, Clara. You don't have to apologize. I get it. I've always known you were chasing something that wasn't meant for you, but I've always been here waiting for you to see that te what up in me eyes. As I looked at him, I don't deserve you, Ethan. I've been blind, but now I see. I've been too focused on what I thought I wanted, but the truth is I've always had everything I needed. With Yoha smiled, his thumb gently brushing over me hand. Clara, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be real. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. So what now? Ethan chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with warmth. Now we start fresh, no more potions, no more fantasies, just us, and for the first time I felt truly free. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, laughing, and planning what would come next. There was no magic, needed no potion to make things work. It was just two people finally seeing each other for who they truly were. Love doesn't need a potion, it just needs the right person, and in that moment, I knew I had found mine. Thanks for watching my story. Have you ever been so focused on someone that you missed what was right in front of you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more dramatic love stories and unexpected twists, because you never know what might happen next.